raising money for funds. But Nigel, I mean, what else is on your mind this week?
Well, you know, GBNews, from the very start, when Andrew Neil launched it, you know, we've said that all opinions are welcome here, that we look for common ground in debates. We haven't shouted at each other yet. It may happen. I don't know. But the really important thing that GBNews has said from the start is it wants to fight against cancel culture. The idea, because I don't like what you think, that somehow you should simply be banned. And I thought it was astonishing that the popular music group, Mumford & Sons, been around for over 15 years, massively successful group, #1 albums, and Wynne Marshall, you know, one of the founders of that group, who happened to like a book that had been written about Antifa, who are the street activist group who wear masks, who are prepared to use violence, and whoever the author of that book was, Wynne Marshall made the point that this was an important book, it was worth reading and worth understanding, and because of that, the reaction to him from the Twitter hate mob, and they're out there. I mean, I think I know some of them personally, actually, and the reaction has been so vicious, so awful, that it's caused a distraction from what they do, and so he's actually going to leave Mumford & Sons, and I find that really, really shocking. You know, only 20% of this country are actually on Twitter, but goodness me, they do, in cultural terms, have some very real power. So I think that's what we've all got to fight together against, isn't it? I
think you're exactly right, and on the Wynne Marshall episode, it's absolutely atrocious. I mean, effectively, throughout lockdown, he's been tweeting about books that he'd been reading so that his followers could learn more about them. He tweeted saying it was a brave author for writing this book, kind of, I think it's about exposing Antifa and some of what they get.
It's called Unmasked.
Right.
It's written by a guy called Andy Ungo, who is, I mean, the author's slightly controversial, but the subject's very important.
Absolutely, and as a result of that, Wynne has been accused of promoting and supporting the far right because he doesn't support the far left. It's absolute nonsense, and I think he wrote a very good piece in Medium, actually, writing about his time in the band, but also talking about his reflections on what's happened over the past few months since he put that tweet out, and how his decision to leave the band is so that he can allow himself to be more outspoken on such issues without it having an impact on his bandmates. It's a sad state of affairs, but I praise him.
I mean, look, he's shown considerable courage, but it's horrible that he's reached this situation. Paul Embry, you and I agree on some things, and we probably disagree quite strongly on some things, but I don't want to see you cancelled, and I don't think you want to see me cancelled. What on earth is going on here when it affects somebody, you know, who's part of Mumford & Sons?
Well, David Cameron, who I disagree with on most things, once said that Britain and Twitter are not the same thing, and we shouldn't forget it. And I think actually some people do forget it. I think particularly people in positions of authority, some people in the media, some people running public services, some people running the corporations, think that if they see a view on Twitter, then it must be the view of the mainstream throughout the UK. And actually, if you see a view on Twitter, that seems to be the predominant view. I think you should assume that the mainstream view in the UK is actually probably the opposite. And what's happened to Wynne Marshall is appalling. And, you know, you said, Nigel, it was shocking. I have to disagree. I don't think it is particularly shocking. I don't think nowadays that when that sort of thing happens, we should be shocked because it's happening all too frequently. You know, the idea that this guy can simply recommend a book because he thought it was a valuable contribution to the debate, and he's forfeited his career in that band, everything he's dedicated his life to, is frankly scandalous. And we're in a society where there are a very vocal and influential group of people who are simply not willing to debate. They're simply not prepared to say, I disagree with you, and here's the reasons why. All too often they're inclined to say, I disagree with you, that's offensive, and you should be cancelled, you mustn't say it. These people are a serious threat, and they need to be stood up to relentlessly, in my view.
Yeah, I want people to stay shocked. I really do, because if we're not shocked, then we start, I think, maybe to accept it. But I completely understand the point, Paul.